Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a translation of a message that I received, and the translation reads like this. Hello, Brother Nashi, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I want to confess, Brother Nashi, that I am a ritualist, but me being a ritualist, it was never my intentions, but it was because of the financial crash that happened in our country in the year 2008. My parents, they had their own grocery store, which was in the villages. But when the financial crash happened here in Zim, my parents' savings, the one that they had in the bank account, in the middle of the night, all of their savings, they were wiped away. And my father and my mother, they were really depressed. And I wanted to help my father and my mother, but I didn't know that this thing that I was going to do, I'll end up sacrificing both my mother and my father. So there was this other man who came from Malawi. This man, I used to know him since I was the one who would go to Glendale. Then I would buy some stock for our grocery store back in the village. So each and every time when I was in Glendale, this man, he used to sit down with me and he would teach me a lot of things that has to do with business. When my father found out that there was a man who was busy mentoring me, my father was really happy for me, and he told me that I should keep on being friends with this man who was from Malawi. So this man, I then asked him why was it that his business was really going strong, like his bottle store. It was making a lot of profit, yet the businesses around him, they were just going down because of what had happened. Then that man told me that he regularly visits his country back in Malawi. If I wanted to go with him on the next trip, then I could do so. So I returned back to my parents and I lied to my parents that this man, he wanted to show me this other fishing market that was there in Malawi, and it had a great potential if I was going to bring the fish back in Zim. My father even sold a cow so that I can get some money to travel with that man to Malawi, as well as to have some money to buy some fish so that I can come and test the market. When we arrived in Malawi, we then waited for the traditional healer. Then the traditional healer spoke with me. The traditional healer asked me if I had the nerves to become a ritualist. This traditional healer told me that all that was needed was a chicken. That was the payment that he wanted from me. After getting this money, I was supposed to take a chicken, go with that chicken and slaughter it by the side of the river. That was the payment that he needed, but it was a lie. When I returned back from Malawi, we were making a lot of money at my parents' grocery shop. My parents, they were even amazed at the way that I was running this business, because it was only profit, nothing else. But that was when I was told that a sacrifice was needed. And when I was told that a sacrifice was needed, my father was the one that was going to be that sacrifice. My father passed away, Brother Nashi. When my father passed away, I was then told that I was not supposed to stay for a very long time in the village after he had died, because something bad was going to happen to me if I was going to stay for a very long time in the village after his burial. So after my father had passed away, I then stayed in the village for only 2 days, and I lied to my mom that I quickly needed to return back so that I can finish some of the business dealings that I had in Glendale. I then returned back to Glendale, and I didn't want to go back to the village because these were part of my rituals. That healer then told me that another sacrifice was needed again. This man, when he told me that another sacrifice was needed again, there was nothing that I could do. My mother, she then passed away. When my mother passed away, that traditional healer then told me that he could not permit me to go and attend my mother's funeral, because since me and my mother, we didn't share the same blood, if I go there, my mother's spirit was going to fight against me. That was when I was forbidden from ever going back to the village where I was born. And this is the life that I am living. I switched off my phone because I didn't want my mother's relatives to keep on contacting me. I just told them that I had been robbed by some thieves. I was on my way coming to the village, but I never showed up for the funeral. I stayed in Glendale until I had bought my own house, and when I bought my own house, I then got married and I had kids. As for my wife, I love her with all of my heart. Even if it happens that today I am told that I am supposed to sacrifice her, I am not willing to sacrifice my wife because she is the love of my life. I don't know what is going to happen on that day when I am going to be told by these tokologists that it is now time for me to sacrifice my own wife because I love her and I love my kids. It then happened that me and my wife, we were on a vacation. We had gone out of the country just enjoying our money. That was when one of my gardeners sent me a picture. It was just a picture that was dark, and I was really angry. I said, this man, is he mad or what? When I spoke with him, he then told me that he had tried to take this picture because something bad, something terrible was happening back at home. When I heard him saying that he had seen a ghost, I then told my wife that we quickly needed to return back to Zim, and that is what we did. We flew back to Zim, and when we arrived at our house, Brother Nashi, I got the shock of my life. There was this other beautiful car that was just parked in the driveway. I love that car with all of my heart. I would not drive it at all the times because it was one of my favorite amongst all of my cars. But this car, Brother Nashi, it seemed as if someone had tried to burn this car. When this thing happened, that was when I decided that it was far much better to fire my maid as well as my gardener. My wife, she is a Christian woman. She loves to pray a lot. Whilst we were standing outside, when we saw that this is what had happened, I asked everyone to pray. Then we started praying, and I prayed on top of my voice, casting out the evil demonic forces that wanted to burn my car. I did this so that I can impress my wife, because my wife does not know that she is living with a ritualist. When we went to bed, I then spoke with my wife until I convinced her that our maid was a witch. We then fired her. When we fired our maid as well as our gardener, that was when we were sitting, I smelled that there was something that was burning outside. We then went outside, in that same car, it was burning, Brother Nashi. My wife then told me to inform the neighbors, but I was scared to do that. I then called my neighbor, but I didn't want my neighbor to know that my car was being burnt to the ground, and I didn't know who had started this fire. I asked my neighbor if he smelled that there was something that was burning. My neighbor then said, no, everything is okay. We all spoke. All of my neighbors, they looked around and they said, no, there is nothing that is burning. That was when I said to my wife, you see, this fire, it is a spiritual fire. Our maid, she has contacted one of her powerful witches. They are the ones that are doing all of these things. We started to pray. My wife does not even know that the reason as to why this car was burnt to the ground, it is because it is time for me to sacrifice. It is time for me to go back to Malawi, so that I can renew those vows. But I cannot do that. I am not willing to return back to Malawi because I am afraid that maybe this time around, maybe my wife is the next on the list. I am not willing to sacrifice my wife, neither am I willing to sacrifice myself or my kids. Maybe if it happens that I'll be told that I have to sacrifice one amongst my father's or my mother's relatives, I'll be okay with it. But as for my wife, never. I can never do that. This is my own confession. Dear listeners, right there was a message that was sent to me by our dear brother, and that was the translation of that voice note that he sent to me.